are back. This is Routes y Raíces. I am Jennifer, and this is Kimmy.
Hello, everybody. Kimmy clocking in.
Clocking in, not to be confused with Clocking In by Justin Bieber. Have you ever seen that video?
I have
Is
not.
it clocking?
No.
Like, is it clicking, but is it clocking?
I missed that one. I'm glad I missed it.
I'll show it to you someday. So we are back here and trying to figure out what's going on with this country and immigration, or lack of immigration reform, better yet. So we are going to talk about the Dignity Act.
Yeah, so a lot going on. There's a lot going on and also nothing.
There's a lot of nothing.
There's a lot
That
of
sums it up
nothing.
really well.
There's a lot of noise, not a lot of action, really, in terms of like moving forward or making any progress on anything. But the Dignity Act wants to offer us some possible solutions. So give us a quick rundown of like a kind of a gist of what's going on with that. I know there's like tons of sections to it. Apparently it's trying to cover a lot of bases, but we want to talk through some of them and kind of maybe address some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the critiques about it, and hopefully try to give some thoughts and some info on what this is and go from there. What you got for us, Jenny?
That's right. So what is the Dignity Act? The Dignity Act, it's essentially a way for people who have been here for years to be able to remain in the United States, be able to work. They'll be paying fees for having come to the United States unlawfully. But at any rate, those fees would help the U.S. government as well. They could stay in the United States, and they also would be able to travel. So they don't have to stay in the United States like forever. They would be able to travel.
Travel outside the country?
Outside the country.
And then come back in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Why is this even in the picture? Why is the Dignity Act even spoken about right now? Well, because the immigration system is literally broken. You can't just go to the post office and say, hey, I've been here for 15 years. Give me my green card.
This drives me crazy because people just like, oh my God, it happens all the time. And people are just like, oh, well, they've been here so long and they didn't get their citizenship. And my brain just explodes every fucking time.
Right. And I don't even think, okay, based on these comments that you read online, I don't even think people know that there's like lawful permanent residence, aka green card, and citizen. Like there's two different things, and people have to go through the green card status before they even apply for citizenship.
But what if I just married a U.S. citizen? Like, isn't that automatic?
No.
What?
The answer is no. First of all, it's conditional once you marry a U.S. citizen.
It's conditional, and we'll even go a little bit further before that. There's an application process. Like you have to apply, you have to petition, you have to go through a process to get this status, and you have to go through a ton of screening and various kinds of checks just to even try to get that first part. And the pathways to get there are various depending on how you got here in the first place. We've got separate episodes on that. So check out that information in one of those episodes.
So the Dignity Act kind of addresses that issue, but not really. So what is the Dignity Act? There are two co-sponsors to the Dignity Act. Maria Salazar, she is from Florida. She is a Republican. And then Veronica Escobar, she is from Texas, and she is a Democrat. I will say that Maria Salazar has been very vocal about it. They introduced it at the House. It's been introduced since summer of 2025, and it's picking up a lot of momentum right now. Currently, there are 20 Republicans who actually support this, who are co-sponsors to this bill, and 20 Democrats. And the Republicans, you would be surprised, but there are Republicans who are willing to talk about immigration and try to fix this broken system, right? They range from, let's see here, Texas, Indiana, Colorado, Pennsylvania, New York. You have a few from Florida, including Representative Salazar. And then the Democrats, you have from Texas, Ohio, New York, California, Illinois, Michigan. Nobody from Wisconsin, unfortunately. But you have a good chunk of both parties supporting this bill. Now, in terms of nonprofit organizations and unions, there are about, I think, 80 right now that are supporting this bill. So you have a good chunk of people from both the political side and nonprofit organizations and unions supporting this bill. Why was it introduced? because immigration has obviously always been a hot topic during campaign season. Whether it's hardcore, right, no immigration, get everyone out, we don't want any illegals, or the left, let's try to make something work with the people who are already here. I think there's a common consensus that nobody really wants criminals here doing crazy things without a status or with a status. Like, nobody wants that.
And I also want to add to that, there are screening processes that people have to go through where they go through background checks. And if there's any sort of like a criminal mark on your record, that gets reviewed, evaluated, dug through everything, and it can be a disqualifier for getting lawful status. That's already been there. It's not something new that they just started looking at criminal history for people. Like that's been in existence for decades.
Yes. So not everyone would qualify for the Dignity Act. People who even came during the Biden administration wouldn't qualify for the Dignity Act. But as Kimmy was saying, there has been a vetting process for people who have been here or who have tried to apply for any type of immigration benefit. If the benefit even exists for them or they qualify for it, they still have to go through all these prerequisites. One of them being criminal background check, right? So it's not like anyone who crossed the border automatically qualifies. And if they do qualify, it's because they went through extensive background investigation. So that's been happening. For all you people who think that anyone and everyone qualifies, that's not true. Vetting has been going on. This administration didn't change that.
The only thing that they've done is be loud about it.
And skip due process.
And skip due process. Yeah. If we're not going to do due process, then you could do a lot of shit. Like if we're just going to ignore due process, then what does anything even mean?
And I know maybe some listeners are like, well, they're not entitled to due process. They're not even from here. Wrong. They're entitled to due process. People who are here, whether they have a status or not, have constitutional protections as well. It is not limited to those who have a status.
Due process is also just how we choose to function as a country. It's not about the person. It's that we have a certain standard for integrity and the rule of law, that we choose to honor the law in this way, regardless of who you are. The point is that the law treats everybody equally, or that's the theory, how things are supposed to function. And so people that feel like, oh, well, these people aren't entitled to due process, that means that you are discriminating that person.
Not only that, you're entering a slippery slope where you're willing to compromise due process for somebody. Because if you compromise for one group, you compromise for any other group.
And do we value that? Because if we are going to say that we do not value due process, we do not value constitutional rights for certain people, I think we need to have a real conversation with ourselves about who we are as a country and like what is the United States? What does it stand for? Because I think right now it's standing on some busted stilts.
We're
it's
shaking.
Standing, they shaking.
We are shaking right now.
It's not looking good. Dignity Act.
Okay, going back to the Dignity Act. Sorry, guys. This is just, it really it gets into different areas, but why is it gaining support? Because there's been so much going on since this new administration came in. They are simply not following the rule of law. They're not. And so a lot of people are getting angry about it. Even people who at one point were, okay, let's support this administration with immigration, are kind of like walking back on that because of what they're seeing take effect in the streets of this country. It almost like you look at videos and it's not even limited to immigrants at this point. It's U.S. citizens also who are being attacked, who are being tased, who are being murdered in the streets. And it's all premised on one issue, and that is the issue of immigration. So in response to everything that's going on with immigration, this Dignity Act came through. And so what does it entail? What is the Dignity Act? It's broken down into different sections. Some of the sections focus on immigration reform, but on the perspective of those who want to have more enforcement, limiting the people who are coming into the United States. Then on the other half, it is also focused on people who are already in the United States and trying to give them an opportunity to remain in the United States with penalties also associated to that. So it's kind of like the act focuses on enforcement, but also focuses on how can we provide an opportunity for these people who have already been here and also give back to the U.S. economy? Because a lot of these people are doing either jobs that people don't want to do, right? Or are providing a lot to the U.S. economy, whether it's jobs your average ordinary American citizens don't want to do these jobs, or the reality is they're bringing in a lot of money to the economy, to the United States. The United States realizes this, and so it's giving them a pathway to remaining in the United States. Not a pathway to residency, with the exception of one particular group. It's just a pathway to remain in the United States, be able to work with a work permit, be able to travel outside the United States. Representative Salazar is getting a lot of pushback right now from the GOP. Those who are not co-sponsoring, the 20 that are not co-sponsoring, are pushing back. Why are they pushing back? They're pushing back because the argument is that that's not what Donald Trump was placed in office for. President Donald Trump got a mandate to get rid of all the criminals, all the illegals, and Representative Salazar is basically spitting on the face of those voters, essentially, because she's providing that pathway to people who are already here. So they're saying, you're providing amnesty when this administration was voted into office to take that path away.
So it's an amnesty issue, or their
Yes.
argument is like, oh, well, this is amnesty, and we
Exactly.
don't want amnesty.
Exactly.
Interesting word.
Yeah. So what does amnesty even mean? Kimmy, do you have a perspective on what amnesty means?
I mean, amnesty, I guess I'm just kind of understanding it in terms of what I've seen in the immigration context, which would be similar to like the 1980s amnesty. And that's basically just saying anybody that's here, automatically you have lawful status. Now, back in the 80s, it was a little slightly before my immigration time. I was in my child years and not quite following immigration laws as closely.
You
but
were being a child.
I was being a child.
You weren't following law.
I was astute as a child, but not that astute. Anyway, my understanding of it is that at the time there was a temporary residency process where the law allowed people to apply for temporary residence for like 2 years, I think, and then after that you had to go through a separate application process to then become a lawful permanent resident. And each of those, I presume, involved background checks and that sort of thing. But it's basically saying like, okay, you're allowed to stay here and become a lawful permanent resident, which is then the path towards citizenship. This bill seems like it's not even a path to permanent residence for most people. It just allows you a work permit and a travel document, and then you're just basically like stuck in this in-between no man's land sort of a space where you're here lawfully, but it's not really leading to anything. Unless you qualify for residency through some of the already pre-existing processes, but outside of that, no. Like just through this act, it wouldn't be. So in that sense, I don't see how it would be amnesty per se. I mean, these are people that are here already. They are contributing already. They're working already. They're paying taxes already. They have families here. You know, they're supporting kids, families, whatever it may be. And so the only thing this really does is make it so that actually it makes it so that the government can track them better.
Right.
And can tax their money even more closely, or things like that ultimately I feel like the benefits are heavier on the government side in this case. I don't know, is there like a renewal process for this? Like, do they have to
Yes.
re-register every 2 years?
Every
or
7 years.
Every 7 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so every 7 years they have to reapply, and basically it's an opportunity for the government to then continue to screen them and to check to see if there's been any negative changes in their history or whatever things that like might impact their ability to stay on the program. So it's not an indefinite, like, you're here and that's it, let loose. So I just don't see the amnesty argument necessarily in that way, unless you are just so committed to no immigrants. But that's a different problem.
Yeah. And amnesty really hasn't been defined. Like the INA, I have my
The
amnesty.
INA doesn't have a definition for amnesty, no.
Right. So it appears that amnesty is used as a
Clickbait.
yes, like
It's a buzzword.
Right. It's a buzzword, is a subjectively defined term depending on which side of the spectrum you are. And so the GOP right now is pushing back to Salazar because it's like, this is amnesty. It's a path, but it's not. Like, it really isn't. You still have paths available, like Kimmy said, that already predate this Dignity Act, but the Dignity Act itself is not a viable pathway unless you fall under the DACA category, which we'll talk about.
Right.
And so, yeah, they're pushing back on her and they're saying she kind of like betrayed the GOP because she's a GOP representative and she's really pushing hard on the Dignity Act because it's amnesty. But there's literally no, if you look at the bill yourself, there is no language in there that emphasizes a legal permanent resident status at all or a pathway to it, with the exception, again, caveat, the DACA. So, what is the Dignity Act? How is this going to benefit the people who are already here, who have been here pre-Biden administration?
I mean, I guess the benefit is that you're allowed to get work authorization in most states in the U.S. That means that you also have a manner to then get a driver's license, a social security number. And so this allows you to also file taxes with a social versus an I-10. So there is that benefit, but also being able to work and not having to work around the system to have to do that, because whether people want to admit it or not, like if you're here and you have a family, your goal is to try to feed your family and to take care of your kids. So this just gives dignity to that group of people in the sense of being able to seek employment and work lawfully in the U.S. And then the other benefit you said was travel. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so once people are here undocumented, they're effectively kind of like trapped in, basically. They can't leave the country, and if they do, they trigger all sorts of bans for being able to get lawful status in the future. So I don't know if this protects them from triggering those bans. I would assume it would.
You know, that's...
Or is that unresolved?
It
Technicality.
Yeah.
Technicality.
I mean, if this even gets past the House, really, to the Senate, I'm sure they'll try to, like, tweak things on the bill, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I guess in theory, this would allow people to leave the U.S. if they wanted to and then come back lawfully. So if it's somebody who's like a seasonal worker, it would just, they'd be here for whatever their season is, and then they'd go back to their country and then come back for the next season, which would, I think, relax some pressure on both them and employers.
Yeah, but even seasonal workers would be allowed to stay.
They'd be allowed to stay, but I'm saying if they chose to go back for like 3-4 months because they're off season, they can just, would be able to come back, and it sounds like that wouldn't be an issue, or would they not?
Okay, so let's just distinguish these two, because one part of the section is pertinent to Dreamers and DACA. That's what it says, literally, Dreamers and DACA.
We're setting them aside right now.
That's one path. And then there's the dignity status, which is where everyone else falls in. Unless you're Dreamers or DACA, everyone else would fall under the dignity status umbrella. Mm-hmm. So who are they? Who would fall under that category? Anyone who came before the Biden administration, who have been here living, I guess you can call it under the radar, or in the radar, maybe. But if you're in removal proceedings and this bill passes, would you qualify for it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically you should be able to,
right.
But who the hell knows what the fuck's going on with removal proceedings right now?
Right.
So.
Because there's a backlog of, I think, like 4 million right now.
Funny you should ask. I have the number right here.
Oh, nice. Lovely.
New court cases recorded so far in 2026 is 201,800. Cases in immigration court backlog, 3.3 million.
Yeah, 3.3 million, and that's, 200,000 just on 2026 alone? 201,000?
Yeah, and that's as of February.
Yeah, that's wild.
200,000 in the first 2 months of the year. 1.83% of those in proceedings are in proceedings based on alleged criminal activity, by the way. 1.8%.
And during campaign season, it was always, we're going to get the worst of the worst out. As soon as the administration got into, the White House, it was no longer all criminals, but everyone, really. And then the narrative changed into, well, if you cross this country legally, you're a criminal.
Uh-huh.
So who qualifies? Anyone that came in before December 31st of 2020. Recipients, so recipients are those who apply, and if they qualify, will be offered a chance to work. They have to pay restitution for being here. What does that mean? It means they're going to have to pay a fee for being in the United States without a status. So for those of you who are like, why are they here? They should be penalized. They are going to be penalized, okay? So they're going to have to pay restitution. They're going to get right with the law, and they will earn a legal status, not
lawful status.
Lawful status.
Or not lawful residency.
Permanent resident, yes. Not green card holders. They're just going to have a legal status.
So it's kind of like DACA, but
right.
Not DACA.
But not DACA, yes. Just briefly on that, why is it not DACA, but kind of like DACA? Because only a particular group of people qualified for DACA, right?
Correct. And it was people who applied between, 2012 up until, I think it's like 2017 or something like that. DACA has not been a thing for new applicants since at least like 2017.
Right.
So whoever qualified in that 5 years has been able to renew, but nobody else has been able to do
apply.
it. Yeah.
And it only pertained to childhood arrivals. So
Correct.
It's kind of like DACA, but it's not DACA because DACA was very limited in scope as to who could apply and benefit from it. So applicants under the Dignity Act have to comply with all federal and state laws. They have to, ding, 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 pass a criminal background check. If you have some type of criminal history, you're not going to qualify under the Dignity Act. And they have to repay back taxes owed, if any, and start paying income taxes. So what's interesting about the have to start paying income taxes part? A lot of people are already paying that.
Right. I just wanted to go back to the whole restitution thing because first of all, like what kind of restitution are we talking about considering these guys had vast majority were already paying taxes. So whatever I owe you, maybe check them taxes I already paid. I don't know. That's my personal opinion. I know this is not what the bill is saying, and I think the people who are against it would very strongly disagree with my position. But my position is go check out whatever I already paid, and then if you still think I owe more, then bill me for those $3. But otherwise, like, I haven't been able to see any sort of benefit from the taxes that I've already paid. So what are we talking about?
Yeah. So for those of you who are opposite of what Kimmy just said, restitution means $7,000. So I get where you're coming from, Kimmy. Yes, you are probably here and have been here and have been paying taxes every single year.
Way more than $7,000.
Way more than $7,000.
And I also just want to footnote it real quick. I think we may have addressed this in another episode. I don't remember. But for those who are wondering or haven't listened to that, well, how were they paying taxes if they didn't have a social? I-10. Individual tax identification number allows you to file taxes even if you do not have lawful status in the U.S. And the government created that specifically for people like undocumented folks because they didn't want to miss out on them tax dollars.
So what does that mean? It means the government realized that these people who are here without a status can benefit the country financially, have been benefiting the country financially, so they created the I-10. And with the I-10, they file taxes.
The point of it would be to offer people a lawful way to work. It's, and then the taxes portion of it obviously is extra, but they're paying taxes anyway. This would just incentivize them further to continue doing so and to do so with probably less fear, especially right now where there's been a lot of discussion about the IRS having to send information to Department of Homeland Security about people's documented status and whatnot. I think a lot more people are hesitant to file taxes. People who have paid for the last 10, 20, whatever many years, the entire time that they've been here, I feel like people are going to hesitate a lot more to file taxes because they are afraid that it's going to get them in trouble. So I think this would just incentivize people to continue doing what they've already been doing, which is filing taxes. And to do so safely without like jeopardizing their ability to stay here with their kids and families.
And so circling back to that restitution fee, it's $7,000. And I've actually spoken about this Dignity Act to just different people. And more often than not, people will tell you, and by people I mean people without a status, will tell you, yes, I will pay that $7,000 and I will continue paying the taxes if that allows me to stay here and I no longer have to live in fear. They have to do check-ins with DHS every 2 years. So if the fear is well, they'll apply for this and then they'll just go MIA and nobody knows where they are. Well, No, that's not true, because in order for you to seek any type of immigration benefit, you are opening the door to the government, letting them know, like, hey, I'm here. I'm in the United States. So unless they do not apply for the Dignity Act, the government's going to know that they're here.
And also, we have a whole group of people that's a test subject for this, DACA.
Exactly.
Like, who within the DACA population, or how many people do we have in the DACA population overall that just disappear from the system? I mean, I can't really think of any, unless somebody falls out of the program because of maybe getting into some kind of trouble or something, or who knows, but that's very, very, very rare. It is by no means any significant percentage of the group. So taking that as a test class, I just don't see how you would extrapolate from that group that this other group would suddenly be more delinquent. Like, for what reason?
Right. And so, again, in order for them to keep this status, they have to meet particular requirements. And one of them is they have to go into a check-in with DHS every 2 years. So if they don't go into a check-in, they lose the status. Why would they want to lose the status if they went into the radar to begin with? It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
And yeah, they have to remain in good public standing.
Honestly, this just allows the government to track this group of people more closely, monitor them in ways that no other group of people really is monitored, other than maybe, like, I don't know, people with a criminal history or things like that. I'm talking about U.S. citizens in the U.S.
Yeah, and it's become so party line driven that if you, whether you're on the right or left, concede on one point on just immigration alone, people harp on you. Like Salazar, for example, it's the amount of pushback she's getting because she's conceding on the fact that immigration or immigrants or people with alt status are helping the economy, because she's able to concede to that and come up with this bill. Now she's like being threatened on losing her seat with in Florida. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We can't get ahead as a country, regardless of the immigration issue. We can't get ahead if we're not able to concede on certain issues to meet a common ground. We just can't. But at any rate, people who are anti-immigration, this is the part that you guys always focus on. Well, they're getting welfare benefits and they're getting this and they're getting that. This specifically explicitly states that individuals in the Dignity Program will not have access to federal means tested benefits or entitlements. They will not qualify. They have no access to it.
Right, which is honestly there just to appease that group of people, because as it exists,
They
don't have access to that. And even if you go to apply for a public benefit, they ask for your immigration status, and I think you need to be at least like a permanent resident generally for most public benefits. So if you're in this non-resident, non-citizen class,
Dignity class
this
status.
dignity class status, like, you wouldn't qualify anyway, but I guess they threw it in there just to make it clear for people who need some help with their thinking.
Yeah, we'll walk you through it. So they're walking you through it, essentially. People under the dignity status will not get federal means tested benefits or entitlements. In addition, get this, they will be net contributors to tax revenue and to the U.S. economy.
Which pay for everybody else's benefits.
Exactly. So they will, again, this is already in place. This already exists. But now they're like explicitly putting it in this bill. They will be contributing to the pot, but they will not be taking out of the pot.
Mm-hmm. And they're still willing to do it.
And they're still willing to do that. Despite that, they're still willing to do it. How do we know? Because that's already happening. People who do not have a legal status cannot get federal benefits. They're contributing to the pot and not getting from it. Who contributes to the federal benefits? Where does this pot come from?
Taxes.
Us. Taxes. Including those who have the ITIN.
Anybody who pays taxes. Right. Tax revenue, it doesn't matter who paid those taxes, they take out of the tax pot, the big tax pot, and allocate funds to public benefits. And then who gets access to those benefits? Not undocumented people.
Right. And then in big capitalized letters, the language here says, no pathway to LPR, which is lawful permanent residence, which is AKA green card, or citizenship is available through the Dignity Program. There is no pathway. It's just a status. And then upon completion of the dignity program, so if you complete successfully 7 years, if you pay your restitution after 7 years, if you have no criminal encounter or any encounter with law enforcement, if you do your DHS check-ins every 2 years, you can reapply for this status, you being able to stay in the United States and work. The dignity status, individuals will remain protected from deportation. That's literally what it means. You will remain protected from deportation and will have access to full work authorization, the ability to live in the United States, and travel authorization outside the United States. They will remain ineligible. Again, this is the second time they mentioned this. For those of you who are worried about it, they will remain, after successful completion of the first 7 years, they reapply for the second 7 years, they still will remain ineligible for means tested benefits and entitlements. It can be renewed indefinitely, so there's no time frame for it, as long as the individual remains in good standings with all federal and state laws.
Listen, no one who is undocumented chooses to stay undocumented if there is a choice not to stay undocumented. The only reason that people are in those situations is because there's literally no way around it, which should then force the question, why don't we have a fucking way around it? Instead of saying, hey, why are these people just sitting around illegally, quote unquote, ask why is there no path for them that allows them to fix this situation. And I'd like to think that most people are somewhere in the middle, that there are some people that are kind of on the extremes of the political spectrum one way or another, but then most people are somewhere in the middle. But I just don't see that reflected in the immigration discussion, which is unfortunate. And this is a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem until people decide that they want to really do something to address it in good faith, other than just bickering about it and screaming at the other side that you're doing too much, you're not doing enough, blah, 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 and we're just spinning our wheels and getting nowhere. So I think we need to start putting some of the bullshit aside, start having real conversations and constructive conversations about okay, we've got a problem. How do we fix it? How do we address this? To me, the Dignity Act is not perfect, but it's as close to a middle ground that I think we've come in a very long time. So if we can't get through with anything else, I think it's at least a step in the right direction. I also have reservations about it personally, but that's going to probably take us another hour. I don't know.
I mean, you can feel free to opine on that.
My concern in part is creating an indentured servitude sort of a thing. Especially with the restitution payments, the constant check-ins, the so on and so forth. It feels a little, it's giving indentured servant vibes, is what I'm saying. So I'm a little bit hesitant for that reason. But again, is it a deal breaker? If we can come together on a bunch of the other stuff, I guess I'm willing to put some stuff aside. But I guess I just hesitate on that point. I feel like I would want some more discussion about how this is not that, or what safeguards do we have to make sure that we are not creating this indentured servitude class.
I'm reading the language from Representative Salazar's website. If you want to look at the problematic issues, it's on her website. To get to your point, yes, I get where you're coming from, but I look at it under the perspective of it's better something than nothing, right?
Yes, and that's where I'm willing to concede to it to a certain point, but I admit that it is frustrating because I feel like sometimes we do that and we, on the progressive side or however you want to, whatever other trigger word you want to use.
Are you progressive? Kimmy, are you progressive?
I am. For certain things, yes. And I think largely, yes, I am progressive. I think we should all try to be progressive, politically or not, but progressive in general. Because my concern is we give into some of these things and then it just takes a whole fucking turn to the downward at some point and it turns into this negative thing and people are just stuck in that space without really trying to evolve it into something better. And especially the fact that you're kind of stuck in this status and there's no path forward out of it to a different category in some way. That's also, not ideal, obviously, but It is what it is. And what I'm also thinking of is like DACA. DACA was not intended to be a permanent solution. It was a concession made at the time or offered at the time as like a Band-Aid solution while they're trying to figure out a better solution that's more meaningful. And then we ended up just being stuck in it for the next 15 years.
Well, now that you mentioned DACA, perfect segue into that.
Cue chapter 2.
So we talked about Dreamers and DACA, which actually, you can probably answer this. What's the difference between Dreamers and DACA recipients?
I don't think I can answer that, but I'll try. So my understanding is so DACA is Deferred Action of a Childhood Arrival. That is what it currently exists through executive order signed in 2012. But it's a subset, it's a concession of the Dreamer Act, I think is what it was called, that was in discussion or in conversations before 2012. The Dreamer Act was supposed to be similar to DACA, but it was going to be a pathway to permanent residence and citizenship eventually for people who would qualify for that program. There's all this back and forth about it, same as there is now with the Dignity Act, and the people who just like refused to concede to it, like no, they didn't want the amnesty, blah, blah, blah. So DACA ended up being a Band-Aid solution, short-term solution offered through, much more limited than what was proposed through the Dreamer Act by executive order that was supposed to be a temporary solution to allow, I guess, congressional representatives and whoever in politics to discuss this further and come to an agreement. So it was, that's why it was only issued for like 2 years with the option to renew for an additional 2 years, but it was never intended to be a permanent solution. And I guess now it's being roped into the Dignity Act.
It says Dreamers and DACA recipients are provided with conditional permanent resident status for 10 years. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's one little exception as to who does have a pathway, and they are Dreamers and DACA, okay? At any rate, it's for 10 years.
So they got to be conditional residents for 10 years?
For 10 years.
And then
so
after 10 years, they can apply for permanent residence?
Yes. Then it says they will have a pathway to adjust to lawful permanent residence, so LPR, non-conditional status, through work experience, 1, military service, 2, or higher education, 3. One of those 3 categories will allow them to the pathway of lawful permanent residence without the conditions. So that's a little caveat for the Dreamers and DACA. So yeah, I mean, that was the little exception for if you want to call it a pathway to something, it would be DACA recipients. We were kind of wondering what Dreamers meant compared to DACA because DACA and Dreamers have been used interchangeably. So I went straight to the bill because what you should do is you should look at the bill, the actual text of the bill. Whenever you have a question about something, instead of assuming, the proper thing, the prudent thing, would be to look at the actual text. So we went ahead and looked at the actual text. And so the bill defines DACA only. So what do I mean? It means that only DACA recipients will qualify for that 10-year conditional residency, not Dreamers. Dreamers is not even mentioned because Dreamers don't exist. There's no category.
It sounds like it was maybe just included there on the website because people do interchange those 2 terms.
And that is the HR 4393, in case you guys are wondering and you want to go dig it up yourselves. HR 4393, you can look at the text of the bill.
It is a page turner.
It is
a nail biter.
a knee slapper. You'll be slapping your knee.
Oh my goodness, who doesn't want to read a good HR book?